It all felt so surreal, standing in the living room of my grandmother's house. The scent of lavender lingered in the air, a scent that used to envelop me in warmth and safety as a child. Now it felt more like a ghost haunting the edges of my memories, each breath a reminder of everything that was slipping through my fingers. I gazed around at the framed photographs that lined the walls, a gallery of our family history, smiling faces, laughter frozen in time. There was my grandmother holding me as a baby, my chubby little hands reaching out towards the camera, and my uncle standing proudly beside her, his grin one that used to comfort me. But now that same grin twisted into something darker every time I thought about it. You have to eat, Grandma, I said gently, moving to where she sat in her favorite armchair, the one that had begun to swallow her whole. I brushed a few strands of her silver hair away from her face as I offered her a plate of mashed potatoes and chicken floating in gravy. It'll help you gain your strength. She looked at the food, her brow furrowing slightly as if she was trying to remember what it was or why it mattered. Did I cook that? She asked, her voice trembling as she squinted at the plate. My heart ached as I shook my head. No, Grandma, it was me. Just a little something to keep your energy up, I replied, forcing a smile that felt painfully stiff. I watched as she picked up a spoon, but it wavered uncertainly in her hand. Thank you, dear, she mumbled, but her eyes drifted away, staring blankly into the distance. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. It was unbearable seeing her like this, so vulnerable, a far cry from the spirited woman who had taught me to bake cookies and knit scarves. The kindness and warmth she had bestowed upon me felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by a rising tide of resentment and confusion. Just as I began to feel the sad weight of the air around us, I heard a familiar, too smooth voice that brought with it a wave of nausea. Hey there, Mia. My uncle walked into the room as if he owned the place, a self-satisfied smile plastered on his face, eyes glinting with that insufferable charm he wielded like a weapon. How's my favorite gal? Cut the act, please, I snapped, unable to hide the bitterness in my voice. You don't need to be charming right now, just tell me what you want. His smile faltered for a moment, just a flicker in his steel gray eyes. No need to be so hostile, I'm just here to check on my mother. You think I'm not concerned? Concerned? I echoed incredulously, my voice rising. Concerned doesn't mean stealing $50,000 from her savings. You've manipulated her trust for your own gain. The air thickened with tension, a tangible force that hummed like a live wire between us. His laughter rang out hollow and mocking, the kind that set my teeth on edge. Come now, Mia, this is for her medical care, you know that. He was feigning indignation, like an actor desperately trying to earn sympathy on stage. Spare me the drama. You're living it up while she doesn't even remember if she had breakfast or lunch. I felt the heat rush to my cheeks, fueled by the bitterness swirling inside of me. I couldn't believe he had the audacity to show his face here, to dare to act like he was the dutiful son. Why don't you focus on taking care of her instead of throwing accusations around? He said dismissively, crossing his arms. All I could think was how his dark suit clung to him, a perfect reflection of how he had turned my family's love into a suffocating noose. With a shaky breath, I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You think you can hide behind your excuses forever, that no one will find out what you're doing? He stepped forward, his presence overpowering, as if he could physically dwarf me in this moment of confrontation. And just how do you plan to expose me, Mia? What will you do, Huck? Go to the police, they'll laugh you right out. There has to be a way to stop you, to show everyone what you really are, I said, my mind racing. A plan was forming slowly, fueled by an overwhelming sense of injustice. The thought of my grandmother, helpless and confused while he powered through her savings, ignited a fire in my belly that demanded to be addressed. I'll protect my family's dignity. You should remember that, he sneered, stepping back, a calculated escape from the situation. Well, do you want to know what I remember? I challenged, the words slipping out before I could stop myself. I remember the day you were supposed to help Grandma when she fell in the garden. You weren't around. You were enjoying a day out while she was left alone, and every time she calls out for you, she doesn't get your help. You just come here for the money, like a vulture circling a dying animal. He paused, his smile faltering again, and I relished the flicker of doubt I saw in his eyes. You don't know what you're talking about, Mia. You should be careful with your words. Should I? I taunted, the adrenaline surging through me, fueling my anger. What happens if I tell everyone what you're really doing? You'd lose more than just your spot at Grandma's side. My uncle growled softly, but I recognized the panic behind his bravado. You best watch yourself, he hissed, turning on his heel. You'll regret crossing me. Regret? Oh, I'm just getting started, I replied, my heart pounding. As he stormed out, I felt tears well up in my eyes. It wasn't just anger I felt, it was a boiling need for justice, a burning desire to protect my family from someone who was supposed to love us. I turned back to my grandmother, who had fallen asleep in her chair, soft snores gently escaping her lips. I sat beside her, taking her frail hand in mine, kissing it softly. I promise you, Grandma, this is not how your story ends, not while I'm still here. The warmth of her hand against mine anchored me, and under the weight of all my emotions, the resolve to act began to form. The backyard was alive with the smell of sizzling burgers and the sound of laughter, a typical scene at family gatherings that served as both a comforting balm and a painful reminder of the rift that had formed within us. I could hear the clinking of glasses, the hum of music drifting through the warm summer air, and I stood at the edge of it all, my heart pounding. I stepped over the threshold, the lush green grass cool beneath my bare feet, a contrast to the scorching frustration simmering inside me. Today was different. Today I was going to confront my uncle. The stakes felt high, and I could practically feel the weight of the moment pressing down on my chest. I spotted him at the corner of the patio, clutching a beer and laughing heartily with someone else in the family. The sun glinted off the metallic surface of his watch, a gift I had once given him, and the sight twisted the knot in my stomach. My mind raced through the past conversations and the slow revelation of his betrayal. How could he have taken so much? How could my own blood do this to me? Taking a deep breath, I steeled my resolve and walked toward him, each step echoing in my mind, drowning out the laughter around me. When he finally spotted me approaching, his smile faded slightly, morphing into a more guarded expression. "Mia, what brings you over?" he asked, flashing that overly bright smile, the one that made me want to puke. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice shaky but firm. The need for confrontation overshadowed my fear, and I gestured toward a quieter patch of lawn where the laughter faded into a soft background murmur. "Sure, kiddo, what's on your mind?" He leaned back against a wooden picnic table, and I could see his body tense subtly. I took a moment to gather my thoughts: the betrayal, the missing money, my parents' unwavering loyalty to him. "I know about the money, Uncle. You need to stop lying to me," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the tremor I felt beneath it. I was worried I could be overheard, but I pressed on anyway. "You took thousands from the family account. I have proof," he laughed, a sound that felt like nails on chalkboard. "Oh, come on, you must be misreading the situation. These things happen all the time," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "It's all just a big misunderstanding." A surge of rage coursed through me. I took a half step closer, my heart pounding harder. "A misunderstanding? How is stealing from your own family a misunderstanding? You think I'm making this up?" He chuckled again, a light-hearted twinkle in his eye that made me feel sick. "Listen, Mia, we all make mistakes. It's a tough world out there. You need to learn to let things go." He placed a firm hand on my shoulder, but I shrugged it off, feeling the connection that had once felt warm and safe now ice cold and suffocating. And just like that, my hopes of reconciliation crumbled. "You know, it's not just about money, right? You've broken trust, and that's the real crime." I could feel the heat racing through my cheeks as I fought not to cry. "Trust?" he asked, perplexed. "What have I done to break your trust?" "You're blowing this all out of proportion. Really, what about the accounts, the transactions?" I pressed on, desperation creeping into my voice. "This is just me making assumptions. It's right there on paper." I could feel the slight tremble in my hands as I fished out my phone, ready to show him the screenshots I had compiled with meticulous care. "No, no, no, Mia, stop right there." He cut me off sharply, lowering his voice, his eyes darting around as if he feared our conversation was drawing attention. "You don't know what you're talking about. Just keep quiet. You're going to ruin this for everyone." Ruin everyone? There it was, the voice of my parents echoing over the years, telling me to hush, always hushing my fears and concerns. "You are the one ruining this, Uncle, not me," I said, unwilling to back down. Before he could respond, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my dad, stepping in as he always did, his presence feeling like a looming shadow. "Mia, what's going on?" he asked with a worried crease in his brow. "Dad, I was just asking Uncle about the money he took," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the frustration boiling inside. "Oh, come on, Mia," he said, shaking his head in that familiar way. "You're being dramatic. Uncle just helped us through a tough time. You need to think about all the good he has done for this family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "But he took money that was meant for emergencies. He lied to us." My mother joined the fray, another voice solidly on his side. "Honey, stop this right now. You're overreacting. He didn't take anything. We talked about the finances, remember? Just last month, we agreed on a budget." "A budget that he manipulated," I shouted, the words bursting out like fireworks. Suddenly, all eyes were on me, family members casting nervous glances with white smiles plastered on their faces, unsure of how to navigate the storm. I felt completely isolated, like an outsider in my own family. "Stop stirring up trouble," my dad said firmly, and for a moment the world faded away. I felt as if I were trapped in a vortex of anger and betrayal, the weight of their ignorance feeling unbearably heavy on my shoulders. "I'm not stirring up trouble. I'm trying to protect us," I said, my voice cracking under the strain of emotion. "He is the trouble." "Enough," my uncle said, stepping back, his facade slipping for just a moment, revealing a flash of annoyance in his eyes. "Nobody wants to hear this kind of negativity at a family barbecue. Just chill out, will you?" A lump formed in my throat, and I felt utterly defeated. There was nothing left but to walk away, to accept that my family might never support me, and the truth would remain buried beneath their blind loyalty. I turned, the barbecue noise rushing back around me like a tidal wave drowning out my frustration. I stumbled away, retreating to a quieter place in the yard, empty and lonely. As the night wore on, I felt a fire ignite within me. If I had to fight this battle alone, so be it. I picked up a notebook and began documenting every suspicious activity, every irregular transaction I could find. I could not let this injustice slip through my fingers. I was going to prove my uncle wrong, no matter what it took. The darkness of solitude settled around me, but I would not let it consume me. I would fight, and one day the truth would come to light. Thanksgiving dinner arrived with an air of forced cheer, the smell of roasted turkey mingling with the sweet notes of pumpkin pie. However, beneath this festive veneer, a storm brewed inside me. As I stood in the cramped kitchen of our family's house, I could feel the weight of the plan I had meticulously crafted pressing down on my chest. I was about to confront the one person I once looked up to, the one who had betrayed our grandmother and shredded her trust. It felt surreal to be surrounded by laughter and warmth while my heart bled for my grandmother, who was confined to the shadows of her own home. Each clink of silverware and burst of laughter from the dining room felt like cruel mockery. "Mia, pass the gravy," my mother called cheerfully, oblivious to the turmoil that twisted within my stomach. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside a tempest raged. I glanced at the clock. The dinner table was set, adorned with leaves of autumn colors, but all I could envision was my grandmother, frail and shrunken, sitting in her quiet room, haunted by abandonment. The memory of her tears piled atop my shame like a suffocating quilt. It was not just the neglect that seized my heart. It was the realization that my uncle was siphoning her hard-earned savings to live a life of luxury. Each purchase he made felt like a dagger thrust into the heart of our family, reshaping our history into something unrecognizable. "Mia, honey, are you all right?" My mother's voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to find her handing me the gravy boat, her brow furrowed. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied through clenched teeth. How could I explain that I was holding in a whirlwind of fury? The mixture of love and anger swirled within me, a dizzying dance only I could feel. "Just a little tired." She nodded, not fully convinced, but returned to chatting with other relatives. The conversations centered around mushy sentimental tales and laughter. It was a stark contrast to the deep-seated anger brewing within me. As I approached the dining room, my gaze landed on my uncle, smugly carving the turkey, his every action oozing arrogance. My determination solidified. This was it. I was going to confront him. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I clutched the folder filled with evidence, the weight of justice in my hand. The table was a tapestry of colors and delicious scents, but all I felt was the heavy taste of bitterness rising in my throat. My pulse quickened as I shifted in my chair, the anticipation raw and electric. The room buzzed with jovial chatter, and I could hear snippets of conversations swirling around me like an angry wind. "Did you see the new car he bought? Oh yes, it is magnificent." The words slipped into my ears like poison. Each compliment directed at my uncle felt like a slap, a reminder of the illusion he maintained while crippling our family. "Let me say a toast," I finally exclaimed, surprising everyone, my voice cutting through the din. The chatter hushed as a table full of expectant eyes turned toward me. "I know it's Thanksgiving, a time for family and gratitude, but I cannot sit here quietly while lies are dressed up in holiday cheer. I have something to say." The silence that followed was palpable, an electric charge filling the air that left everyone on edge. I felt the weight of every glance, the mixture of curiosity and wariness enveloping the room. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I stood, legs trembling slightly at the prospect of unveiling the truth. For weeks, I have witnessed the decline of our grandmother, the woman who spent her life dedicating everything for us. I found her crying in her room, terrified of being left alone. She feels helpless. It breaks my heart. But what is more heartbreaking is that the very person she trusted most is robbing her of her dignity and life savings. I paused, letting my words hang heavy in the air like the tension thickening around us. My uncle's face turned from smug confidence to shocked disbelief, and I could see the muscles in his jaw twitching, the first cracks in his facade. "This is absurd. You are making baseless accusations, Mia," he spat, disdain dripping from his voice. "You have no idea what you are talking about." "Oh, but I do," I said, holding up the folder I had gathered meticulously. "I have receipts, bank statements. I have everything. You are stealing from her. Look around you. Everyone here has been blind to your manipulation, but not anymore." I placed the folder on the table, letting it slide forward, exposing the secret plan he had meticulously concealed. Family members leaned forward, tension electrifying the air. The looks of disbelief morphed into expressions of shock and dismay as their eyes darted from the folder to him, then back to me. "You are putting on a show, dear. You are making a fool of yourself." He laughed bitterly. "You really think anyone is going to believe you over me? But they already are," I shouted, my voice punctuated with raw emotion. "Look at their faces. This is the moment. This is where everything changes. No more pretending. The truth is finally being spoken." An uncomfortable silence enveloped the room. I could see my mother's hand clasping her mouth, while others exchanged glances, torn between loyalty and the undeniable truth laid bare. The colors of the turkey, the cranberry sauce, faded into the background as the battle between right and wrong overshadowed the dinner itself. "Mia, please," my mother finally spoke, her voice low and trembling. "Is this true?" My uncle, sensing the tide of sympathy shifting, tried to salvage his reputation with a feigned look of indignation. "You cannot believe a word she says. She is bitter and reckless." "Bitter?" I spat, tears brimming in my eyes. "I am not bitter. I am furious. Furious that you have taken our grandmother for granted, while we all sat here silent." I continued, my voice rising as my emotions spilled over like a boiling pot. She deserves better, she deserves respect, and I will not stand by any longer. My heart raced, the fervor inside me igniting a light that seemed to illuminate the otherwise dim reality of our family's betrayal. As the truth unraveled in front of us, I felt a mix of power and devastation wash over me. It had become painfully clear that my uncle had been living lavishly while our grandmother suffered in silence, and now the entire family was awake from their reverie. The disbelief on their faces told a story all its own, turning the holiday gathering into a battlefield lined with shattered trust as the room erupted into a cacophony of accusations. My heart raced, fueled by adrenaline and a sense of justice I had long waited to fulfill. The dining room, usually filled with warm laughter and familial bonds, felt like a cage, each voice within it cutting deeper than the last. My uncle stood at the head of the table, a portrait of shock and disbelief, his face paling as I unveiled not just my evidence, but the damning truth I had been nurturing for weeks. "You think I would let you walk away with what is rightfully mine?" I declared, holding up a folder filled with documents. My fingers trembled slightly, but my resolve stood firm. The gasps that emerged from my parents and cousins reverberated against the walls, mingling with the clinking of silverware being hastily dropped onto plates. The tension was so thick it felt as though I could reach out and grab it. My uncle's expression morphed from surprise to indignation as he floundered for a response, his blue eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal searching for an escape. "You don't understand, Mia. It was just business. Family comes first. Family." I interrupted, fire in my voice. "You call what you did to Grandma business. You betrayed her trust and stole her money. You think just because blood runs thicker than water, it excuses greed." His excuses only fanned the flames of my fervor, and I could feel the undeniable high surrounding me as I took a step forward, leaving the comfort of my position at the table. The air crackled with tension as I continued, barely able to contain the urgency in my words. "Hear me out," I emphasized. "The authorities know everything. Every dishonest transaction, every deceitful slip signed in black ink. They will hold you accountable for your actions." My heart thundered in my chest. It was the moment I had been striving for, yet the weight of familial loyalty bore down on me as I crossed that boundary. "Why would you do this?" my uncle shouted, his voice cracking. "This is our family. You are tearing it apart." I could see his hands shaking, betraying the bravado he tried to maintain, and it filled me with a self-righteous sense of victory. I turned to my parents, who remained silent for a brief moment before I noticed the transformation in their expressions. Initially, they seemed furious, eyes narrowed, shoulders tense, yet it was quickly replaced by something else, something I hadn't dared to hope for: satisfaction. "It's about time justice was served," my mother whispered to Dad, her voice low but laced with a fervor that shocked me. It sent shivers down my spine, an unexpected affirmation of my path. My father shifted his gaze from my uncle back to me, and I could see he struggled. He was caught in the rift, the chasm of family loyalty versus what was right. Finally, he leaned forward, and though his voice came out shaky, it was filled with pride as he said, "You did the right thing, Mia." The validation washed over me, but it took a moment for it to sink in. For years, I had felt like a ghost of the family's spirit, but in that moment, I felt vibrant and sharp, alive and clear in purpose. I caught my uncle's eyes again, the defiance slowly melting from his features, replaced by confusion and a trace of desperation. "You can't be serious about this," he muttered, but the tremor in his voice revealed his concern. "I am," I affirmed, my gaze steady and unwavering. "I won't watch as you continue to take from those who love you. You ran your schemes for too long. Grandma would have never stood for this. She deserves better, and so do I. This ends now." The silence that filled the room felt electric. The tension simmered beneath the surface as everyone awaited my uncle's retort. After a few agonizing moments, he began to stammer and fumble, "But it's just a misunderstanding." "Can explain," his words suddenly felt weak, inadequate against the mountain of proof I had laid before him. "Explain what?" I chuckled, emotion bubbling up from deep within like a volcano ready to erupt. "That you believed you could get away with it, that your own family would turn a blind eye while you filled your pockets with stolen cash." My voice heightened with every accusation. The trembling dining room was ablaze with fury and thrill, and I felt like I was standing on the precipice of a new reality. Then a small voice emerged from behind my uncle. It was one of my cousins, her innocent face crumpled in confusion. "Is this really happening? Are we really doing this?" she asked, her wide eyes darting between me and our uncle, as if expecting someone to jump in and call a timeout. "Yes," I answered with a firmness that surprised even me. "We are. This is about what is right and what our family is meant to stand for." The dinner table was now an arena, the oppressive air of betrayal thick enough to slice. My heart raced, but a warmth spread through me as unexpected pride in my actions turned into an undeniable force. I could do this. I would see this through. As the uproar softened to mumbles of shock and disbelief, I felt my father's reassuring hand on my shoulder, his grip firm. "I'll stand by you, Mia," he said, raw honesty in his tone, "no matter where this leads." And at that moment, I knew, in crossing that invisible line of family loyalty, I had not only fought for my grandmother, but for everyone in this room. I had faced the embodiment of greed and deception, and with each word I spoke, I felt like the weight of 100 lies slowly began to lift. The path ahead would be bumpy, but I stood ready, armed with nothing but truth and an unwavering heart. After the dust settled, life returned to a new normal. The cool winter sunlight filtered through the half-drawn curtains of my grandmother's living room, casting soft beams of light that danced across the walls. I could hear the faint sounds of birds chirping outside, a gentle reminder that the world was still turning, even after everything that had transpired. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mixing with the earthy aroma of the flowers my grandmother had insisted on having near her window. Everything felt peaceful, almost surreal, against the backdrop of the turmoil that had just begun to fade into the past. Mia, can you bring me that quilt from the back room? My grandmother's voice broke through my thoughts, warm and loving, still carrying hints of her earlier frailty. I turned around to see her propped up in her favorite armchair, her skin a little less pale, the twinkle in her eyes slowly returning. I rushed to obey, the quilt being one we had crafted together years ago, patched together from memories and bits of fabric that told our family's stories. I pulled the quilt from its resting place, running my fingers over the frayed edges, feeling the soft, worn material beneath my skin. "This one, Grandma?" I asked as I draped it over her shoulders. She smiled up at me, genuine warmth spreading in her expression. "Yes, dear. Just the right thing to cozy up with," she said, her voice stronger, her smile radiant. I couldn't help but reciprocate the smile, feeling a swell of pride at her resilience. It was a different kind of joy to know that all the complications, the fighting, the risks, and the tough moments were starting to lead to something beautiful. "How are you feeling today?" I asked, settling down on the edge of her armchair, my heart brimming with hope. "Oh, I am much better, thank you for asking." "Just needed a little more love and care," she replied, her fingers patting mine. "Your uncle used to come in here and complain about all the things that needed fixing here, but he never lifted a finger." A shadow passed over her face for just a moment, a reminder of his absence, but she shook it off, shifting her focus back to me. "You, my dear, you have been my rock." I felt my heart swell with emotion. "It was worth it, Grandma." "Every last bit of it," I said, remembering the fight I had endured. "We came together for you. That is what matters. It is what family is for." "Family," she echoed softly, a hint of bittersweet in her tone. "You're right, but you need to promise me something." "What is it?" I asked, sensing a shift in her mood. "Let that man drive a wedge between us anymore. No matter what he may have done, promise me we always stick together," she said, locking her gaze with mine. I could see the determination in her eyes, a fire that mirrored my own. "I promise, Grandma, nothing will come between us again," I assured her, and I meant it. As the days turned into weeks, we rallied around my grandmother. Each small victory in her health felt like a win for each of us. The echoes of laughter began filling the home again, each moment reminding us not only what we were fighting against, but what we were fighting for. Evening shadows closed in around us, and the warmth of the season made the house feel alive, with the bustle of family who had come to visit ready to lend a hand. A week before Christmas, we set the table for our small family celebration. It was simple, yet the energy was infectious. My younger cousins bustled around, decorating cookies, and I watched them through the doorway. They seemed blissfully unaware of the chaotic past we had navigated. "Do you think your cousins are going to eat all those cookies?" my grandmother asked with a chuckle as I approached. "They're probably hoarding them to take home," I laughed, grabbing a few cookie cutters. I sighed, my heart feeling light as the scent of cinnamon filled the kitchen. "They really do brighten every corner of this house. They remind us of hope, of the future," she replied knowingly. Out of nowhere, my mind darted back to my uncle. Even in his absence, the shadows of what had happened lingered like smoke, reminding me of the betrayal that nearly tore us apart. Clenched my fists, taking a deep breath to ground myself. I refused to let thoughts of that time poison this moment. "Let us reminisce, shall we?" my grandmother suggested, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Tell me about that time you tried to bake for Thanksgiving. What was it you called it? Pumpkin pie surprise?" I laughed, shaking my head at the memory. "It was supposed to be pumpkin pie, but I forgot the sugar. Everyone said it tasted like cardboard. But you tried, and that is what matters. You put in the effort." Her pride in me weighed more than any accolades. Just then, my cousin hopped into the room. "Are we going to sing carols tonight?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. We had started the tradition of carols ever since the first year Grandma moved into this house. "Of course, we can't have Christmas without it," I replied, feeling a lightness in my chest. As we gathered around the tree later that evening, the twinkling lights reflecting in all our eyes, I knew this Christmas was one for the books. We cheered, laughed, and sang until our voices turned raspy. Each carol was a reminder of our strength as a family, each shared memory a thread weaving us closer than ever. My heart mirrored the warmth of the crackling fire nearby. When I glimpsed my grandmother's joyful expression, her laughter rising like a symphony, I understood this was my true victory. I had fought against betrayal and injustice, but what I hadn't anticipated was that the struggle would cultivate something deeper: love, connection, and an unbreakable bond that resonated through every moment we shared. As I looked around at faces glowing in the light, I realized I had learned the true meaning of family. the warmth of togetherness, the taste of peppermint hot cocoa, and the sound of laughter rising in unison were the spoils I had never expected. The reverberation of understanding settled within me, echoing the triumph over darkness. I could taste the sweetness of healing, each moment becoming a gift, a part of our renewed narrative.